Glad to have you back. Like I said before we went on the break, we are looking at a critical topic today, child abuse, breaking the silence. And we are joined by the Executive Secretary of the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, Titilola Vivour-Adeniyi. She's joining us via Zoom. You're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. All right. So in my introduction, I said that I know that there are levels of awareness going on about child abuse, but we still find this evil, like target evil, prevailing in our society today. So I'd like us to start from understanding what child abuse is, understanding its different forms, shapes, or colors that it might appear to be.
Okay. So child abuse is basically anything, any action or inaction that is done or not done that is not in the best interest of the child. And I take that definition from Section 1 of the Child's Rights Law 2015. It's basically any action that we do that is not in the best interest of the child. And when we engage with parents, we engage with other critical stakeholders, we inform them about the acronym referred to as PENS. P is for physical abuse, beating, shoving, slapping, kicking, hitting. E is for emotional abuse. This can be as a result of verbal abuse that the child is exposed to that affects their emotions, affects their psyche, affects the way they behave and the way they interact with others. N is for neglect. Neglect is at the heart of child abuse because when a child is being neglected, the child is at a higher risk of experiencing other forms of abuse. Of course, S is for sexual abuse. Sexual abuse basically having sexual activity with a person below the age of 18 because the law says that the child is a person below the age of 18. And it's important to re-emphasize the point that children cannot give consent to any sexual activity. So we have those forms. Of course, it's not exhaustive. We have physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, and sexual abuse or sexual exploitation.
All right, like I said earlier, that there are levels of awareness going on, but again, we still find this evil, prevailing in our society. So the question would be, what are the factors that are aiding the prevalence of this evil act in our society based on statistics of cases reported?
So it speaks to different issues. It speaks to our socialization. It speaks to the way we were brought up. It speaks to the way we view children. Some people say children should be seen but not heard. It speaks to the manner in which we treat children. Do we treat children as whole human beings, albeit in small forms? Or do we think that these children, they don't have any rights? As parents, as caregivers, we brought them to this world. We will determine how we train or how we raise them. Again, we are all a product of our socialization. If a person was brought up in an environment where violence was normalized, if a child errs, the next thing is to get a belt, irrespective of the part of the belt, be it the buckle, and the next thing is to wipe that child. Or a child is accused of stealing, the next thing the parent does is to get a razor blade and create incisions on the wrist of the child. If that child grew up in that environment and the child did not access information as to better ways of parenting, there's a very high likelihood that that child will grow up into an adult, and if that adult has children, that is the way they would discipline. And I put discipline in inverted commas because that's not discipline. There's a very thin line between correcting a child, disciplining a child, and abuse. So it speaks to the way we were brought up. It speaks to the notion of what is discipline, right? You hear people say things like, oh, the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Yes. But we sometimes we take these holy books out of context because the same Bible talks about thy rod and thy staff. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. So when we're talking about discipline, when we're talking about instilling discipline in children, we're talking about doing it from a place of love, not from a place of where we want to inculcate fear in children. So to directly answer the question, it's a result of different things: our socialization, the way we were brought up, the way we view our children, culture, the way culture, social norms have ascribed rights of children. All these issues, play a critical role in determining whether or not children will be abused.
All right, this will lead me to my next question of awareness now. As an agency, how is it going? What are you doing to take steps towards ensuring that, especially people at the grassroots, because that's where you find most of these cases, happening. What are you doing to ensure that people gain knowledge on what child abuse is all about? Do you also engage in, educating them on what discipline should be, how to correct a child? How do you go about this?
Definitely. So over the years, Lagos State government has continued to put these issues on the front burner. And what we have in Lagos is a multidisciplinary approach. So DSVA, in partnership with Office of Education Quality Assurance, Ministry of Youth and Social Development, Safety Commission, SUBEB, Education, these critical stakeholders, we come together and come up with different programs for different stakeholders. So when we're talking about eradicating or reducing child abuse, we identify our key stakeholders. We are looking at the children because children have a role to play in their own protection. When then we break it down into preschoolers, primary school, secondary school, we also have to engage with the guidance counselors, the school social workers in the education system, because we have a policy, the Safeguarding and Child Protection Policy, which mandates all child-centered institutions to have safeguarding and child protection in schools. So it's not enough for the government to say we have a policy. We need to ensure that the letters of that policy come alive, and that's by implementation. So we have identified that critical group of people. Then we have to also engage parents, because we have seen over the years that there are some cases that could have been avoided if parents had been better equipped, right? And so we have different programs for parents. But we also know that it's not every child that's in school. So we have different programs for out-of-school children and the community. Because again, Lagos State government has a mandated reporting policy where we encourage whistleblowing, good Samaritans, apropos. We want everybody to see themselves, as mandated reporters. If you see something, say something and do something. And so that means we have to engage with the community. Community does CDC chairman, CDA chairman, traditional rulers, people at the grassroots, people of influence, that can take decisions in their localities. So based on this compartmentalization of stakeholders, we have different programs for them. Just last week, Saturday and Sunday, we were in the churches, we were in the mosques. We have a booklet called My Passport of Rights. It's basically a simplified booklet where we engage children about their rights. Whilst that was going on, we were engaging parents in the adult church on these issues. What is child abuse? How can you detect signs of abuse? What is the process of grooming? A child is not just sexually abused. There is a process. Pedophiles groom children, right? So how can you as a parent, as a caregiver, identify the signs and stop it in its tracks? How can you encourage your child to speak to you despite the fact that they may have been threatened, that if they speak to you, they will die? How can you detect signs? How can you respond appropriately? We have to empower these critical stakeholders. The truth is, you cannot give what you don't have. And so we are very deliberate in engaging these critical stakeholders with relevant information on how to prevent, and then in the unfortunate instance that it occurs, how to respond. And now we also have to leverage technology because, we cannot be everywhere. We have an online platform as far back as, I believe, 2020 during COVID, where we launched, different courses for critical stakeholders such as guidance counselors, school administrators, social workers, medical practitioners on safeguarding and child protection. And then most recently, we've launched one for parents. So if we cannot come to you, as far as you have access to the internet, you can go online, take the course. It's free. Free. You're not making any payment because we want to empower these stakeholders with relevant information so that they can prevent or reduce the likelihood of it happening in the first instance.
So still on statistics from reported cases now, we find ourselves in a society where everyone is minding their business, no one wants to be talked to again. So are cases of child abuse underreported? That's based on statistics of cases that has been reported to your agency. And then if so, why is that? And what are you also doing to ensure that people are more open to come up to that? And then the issue of societal stigma again and how it affects the underreporting of child abuse.
Yes. So I believe that if we look at the data, we are seeing a reversal of that trend where people will say, oh, it's not my business, me and my family. Because most of these viral cases that come to light are from the community. It's the community that informs the government, informs the NGO, informs the police that this child is being abused. This child has been locked up in the room. The child has not been able to access medical attention. And the recent case you spoke to, it was actually the community that assisted the police in ensuring that man was apprehended and that child was rescued. So there is a change, and I believe it's because of the increase in faith in the system, increase in belief in the system that if we activate the system, if we reach out, the needful will be done. And I just want to use this opportunity to encourage negotiations. The truth is, safeguarding and child protection is everyone's responsibility. Honestly, we have a duty to see something, say something, and do something. Government, civil society, police, we cannot do it on our own. It's a collective effort. And I just want to encourage us to continue to see ourselves as mandated reporters. And when we do that, we send a very strong message. In this community, such is not tolerated. And if you are one thing, it will be escalated and the needful will be done.
All right, my colleague has a question for you.
All right, I'd like to find out the role of NGOs and other organizations, because again, you've talked about the fact that there has been, slight decline in or increment in the number of people that now speak out on the abuse. But what is the role of the agency and NGOs and other caregivers across Lagos? Are they also walking the talk? Are they also helping in the campaign at ensuring that DSVA gets to the nooks and cranny of the state?
Lagos is blessed to have this system on ground, a system where non-governmental organizations and relevant government MDAs are able to collaborate and work together towards a common goal. NGOs are in a very, they play a very strategic role because they are in the communities.
Right.
Most times, members of the community have more trust and faith in the NGOs because they are on ground, right? So we work together with these NGOs, creating awareness, informing residents about support services that exist that they can take advantage of, and also responding. This situation, these two cases you spoke about in your introduction, emanated from an NGO run by the comedian called
Princess, right?
That the case was escalated to. She then escalated to us. This is a child. It is alleged that this child is being beaten, abused, on a daily basis, and the most recent incident happened on so day, and the community is saying that this child is yet to access medical attention. Government come and rescue. The NGO has done their work to inform, to be on ground. When that escalation was made, government, police came in and did the needful. So it's a partnership. And you know, when I was in the beginning, I spoke about a multidisciplinary approach. There is no one MDA that can do all this by themselves. There is no one government agency that can provide all these services. We must work together if we are going to move and if we are going to ensure that we reduce this menace to the barest minimum.
Okay, so a follow-up to that, Titilola, would also be the role our courts are also playing, law enforcement agencies. I know you also work with the police. Are you in a better place now with the police? I know they've also brought up some kind of innovations in several hospitals where they have designated desks and centers for such cases. And so take us through what happens also with the courts as well as the police.
Okay, so let me start with the police as the sequence when the case happens. So we have designated police stations in Lagos State referred to as family support units.
Okay.
And I don't know if you saw the communication that emanated from the first PRO,
right,
where they said that the IG has given a directive for all divisions to have a gender desk office in their formation.
Okay,
which is that's the way to go, because this is a specialized area. We need specialized police officers with specialized training that are seized with relevant skills and tools to conduct investigation. They know the referral pathway that should be activated when cases of such are reported. So that's the way to go. But in Lagos, we already have those designated police stations referred to as family support units. Are they perfect? No. I do not think there's an institution that can boast of perfection. But these are units that are manned by trained personnel that are working with government, civil society, and the courts to ensure that the needful is done. Investigation is conducted, children are rescued when necessary, perpetrators are arrested and brought to book.
Okay, and then the courts?
Yes,
the court.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
You also talked about the doctors. Yes, as far back as 2018, primary healthcare centers have been upgraded to be able to provide sexual assault and GBV management services. And so we have trained health personnel in the primary healthcare centers. They are referred to as GBV focal persons. So a case is reported, it behoves on the trained personnel to provide support. And these cases are deemed as emergencies. Fast forward to 2020, 2021, I believe, the general hospitals are also on board. So we want a situation where we are able to mainstream prevention and response to sexual and gender-based violence, child abuse into the different sectors, including the health sector. Now, the judiciary, as you are aware, Lagos State government since 2007 enacted the Child's Rights Law. And that law provides for the establishment of specialized courts referred to as family courts. And these are courts where these issues are typically adjudicated upon. And then we took it a step further to establish the specialized special offences courts, the domestic and sexual offences courts, the first in Nigeria to have designated courts. And so this is just a testament to the seriousness to which the Lagos State government, executive, legislature, and judiciary places on these issues. And if you notice, that case, those two cases that were reported, I mean, the investigation was very swift and the suspects were arraigned. I think this was done within 3-4 days. Investigations conducted, medical reports were gotten, and then suspects arraigned, charged, remanded in court pending DPP's legal advice. So again, it speaks to that multifaceted, multidisciplinary approach in handling incidents of child protection concerns.
All right.
Okay.
some of these cases are perpetrated by close family members. And so as an agency, how do you ensure the safety of the child? And then what do you also do when the other family members come and say they want to settle amongst themselves? How do you handle it?
Yes. So while I was speaking about these issues, it's important to reiterate the fact that there is a whole ministry, the Ministry of Youth and Social Development, that was set up to address issues concerning children. And so if a case occurs like this, not the second one, the first one of sexual abuse, yes, that's the one where the child is an orphan, I believe. It was clear that that child had to be placed in protective custody. So whilst the child was rescued, referred for medical attention, the Ministry of Youth and Social Development placed that child, and that child is still in government custody. So we have that system in place to, rescue, place, and ensure that the child is in a conducive environment pending when investigation is ongoing. In terms of parents or caregivers or family members not willing to continue with the prosecution, it's an issue. It's a major concern. But what we keep on doing is to remind these family members and these caregivers that a crime is committed against the state, and whilst you have a right to say what you want or how the case should proceed, it ultimately rests on the government to ensure that justice is served. And so what we do, we try to understand what the issues are. Why is it that you don't want the case to go to court? Oh, the person is my pastor, the person is my imam, the person is my landlord. My landlord has threatened to eject me from the home. Oh, everybody in the community is aware, they are mocking me. So we try to interrogate what the issues are. When we're able to identify the issues, then we provide and profess solutions. So we actually have a trust fund that can cater to high-risk cases where we need to relocate survivors from communities. If it is clear that this would be a hindrance in getting justice for this child. We also have situations where empowerment needs to step in because perhaps they are trying to coerce the parents into accepting whether it's 50,000 or 100,000 naira. So we appreciate the role poverty plays in the dynamics of accessing justice for survivors. And so that's where that trust fund comes in as well. But there are certain instances where government needs to put its foot down. And it's important to realize that there is a section in not just the criminal law for trying to cover up a crime, and that person can be charged for as an accessory after the fact. But in the Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency law, there's a particular section, I believe it's section 32, that talks about concealment of sexual offenses. And it's very specific. It speaks to parents, it speaks to caregivers, it speaks to child-centered institutions, it speaks to religious institutions, it speaks to community leaders that actively attempt to conceal a crime. Such people can be prosecuted and sentenced to up to 3 years imprisonment. So we are activating that section in a situation where we have done the needful. We have tried to allay fears. We have tried to relocate. We have tried to provide support, psychosocial support, counseling, and yet such a person, such a family member, such a community leader is recalcitrant, then such person has to be arrested and investigated. So it's a combination of different factors when we're addressing these issues. But it is important to note that these are the issues that, sometimes serve as hindrances in, for government to investigate and ensure prosecution of these cases.
All right, Abimbola.
Okay, I'd like for you to, again, I mean, success stories you've shared on the program this morning, but I'm sure there are also challenges, you know, that are causing some kind of, you know, delays here and there. If you'd like to share with us a few of those challenges that you also think you need the support of the people to cross.
And when we're addressing sexual violence, sexual abuse, there is it's not a phenomenon. There is a known fact. It's referred to as the golden hour period. So it basically provides that survivors are to present at a health facility within 72 hours post-trauma. And the purpose of this is for survivors to be able to access medical attention, access a medication referred to as PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis, which when administered reduces the chances of such a person contracting HIV, STI, or STDs or other forms of STDs. Aside from providing medical attention, is the help in collating, collecting, and preserving evidence. When we're talking about sexual abuse, it's not a tea party. You don't say, come and be raped. Most times it's the case, you did it, I did not do it. And these issues have to be corroborated. We need evidence. Let's not forget that these crimes attract up to life imprisonment. And for when we're talking about criminal investigation, it must be proven beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
There cannot be any iota of ambiguity. So we want to encourage, you know, people, residents of Lagos, to help us in ensuring early reporting, so that we can provide, the medical personnel can provide critical medical attention and evaluation, and also collect and preserve evidence. It will also help with the investigation. Imagine a case that occurred in September 2024 is being reported on the 19th of February 2025.
Oh, wow.
There's a very high likelihood that the evidence would have been destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
Survivor found their bath. The environment has been disturbed, you know. So how do we go about in conducting an investigation that will link the suspects to the crime in the absence of DNA? So that is the major challenge.
Okay.
Another challenge is also the fact that certain members of the community believe that these are issues that can be resolved, right? Come, let us talk about it. Madam, talk your own. What do you want? Okay? Say, these are crimes. Crimes are committed against the state. Section 260 of the criminal law talks about rape, the offense of rape. The punishment is life imprisonment. 261, sexual assault by penetration, life imprisonment. 262, attempt, 14 years. 263, sexual assault, 3 years. 264, sexual harassment, 3 years. 265, causing a person to engage in unlawful sexual activity, 5 years. Section 137, defilement, life imprisonment. So we're talking about crimes. So you have no business settling a crime. The same way you cannot settle murder or kidnapping or armed robbery. It's the same way you should not settle this. And it comes, you know, because perhaps it's our patriarchal society, because of the way we were raised, the way certain people view these issues, you think, oh, it's just a slap on the wrist, you know, go and sin no more. So this is the challenge that we have. And, you know, with continuous engagement, letting the community know that you have no business settling these crimes. And if you are caught settling these crimes, you may face jail time.
All right.
So this is another opportunity to create awareness about this challenge and encourage residents of Lagos to work with government, work with us in ensuring that we're able to arrest perpetrators and hold them accountable.
All right. Thank you so very much, Titilola Vivour-Adeniyi, the Executive Secretary, the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, and she has spoken on child abuse, breaking the silence. We thank you so much for joining us on the conversation today. Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, the conversation continues after this. Please stay with us.